Hey guys, I'm Brian Andrew Stevens, and today we're going to be building my very first noodle board. I'm pretty excited about this because this is for some friends of mine, and love building things for friends and family, and so this should be pretty cool. Oh, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on these videos. It helps me out a ton, and I really appreciate it. You know what time it is? It's time to build a noodle board. Okay, so before we go too far, you're going to want a few tools for this project. Starting off with a tape measure. If you don't have a tape measure, get one. It's well worth the $20 and you're going to use it. You're also going to need a miter saw, a sander, a router, a drill, a pocket hole jig, which wouldn't do much good without a pocket hole bit, so get one of those too. And while you're at it, get some Kreg 1 1/4 inch screws for this job. Get some good wood glue, and maybe even a glue bot, which to my disappointment is not a robot at all. It's also helpful to have a table saw. If you want to be like me, get a really embarrassing table saw, you won't regret it. Beyond that, you need wood. You can get whatever wood you choose, but for this project, I use pine. It's affordable and it's easy to work with. So here's what I got. I got one 8-foot long 1x4 and one 8-foot long 1x6. You might need one more 1x6 depending on the size of the noodle board you're building. By the way, you can build your own handles or you can purchase a few like I did. Just remember to get screws that are long enough to go through the materials that you're putting together. I measured my friend's stovetop. Their stovetop was roughly about 23 inches wide by 19 7/8 deep. So we're gonna go 20 deep by 24 wide because I wanna give myself enough room that I can trim those ends and still have a little bit to toy with at the ends of each end of the noodle board. So if I don't leave myself a little bit of excess, I won't be able to trim. And so I want to put all those boards together side by side, and then at the end be able to trim it down the sides and have a perfectly straight edge, okay? Right here is where I start cutting each board for the noodle board. I'm cutting them 24 inches. Then I'll cut off 1/2 inch on each end to make for a perfectly straight edge. I always wear ear protection when I do this. My wife got these for me, M3s. These things are amazing. You can get them at Walmart, you can get them on Amazon. I'm gonna post a link for these because I've been using these, I guess, for about 3 weeks now. They're wireless, they're Bluetooth. I use them with my phone, and these things are amazing. Not only do they block the outside sound and do it well, like I can still listen to my tunes while I've got these on my ears. So you guys check these out. They're M3 sound blocking headphones. These things are awesome. I think if you're looking for something to block sound, you want something quality, these things are killer, so check them out. Okay, so there's a few steps that you'll want to follow along the way. One is going to be to measure and cut your boards. Then you're gonna, if you need to, which in this case I cut my boards down from 5.5 down to 5, so you're gonna also cut them widthwise. This is me cutting the boards widthwise on my fancy table saw. They come in 5.5 inches, so I have to cut them down to 5 inches. Looks like I'll be using 4 boards, so it should make for a perfect 20-inch noodle board. And now it's time to sweep up and close the garage door. It's a bit cold outside today. Okay, so the next step in all of this is we've cut the boards and we need to attach them together. So what are we gonna do? We're gonna use, I'm gonna use glue, pocket holes, and screws. So we're gonna put this all together. So the next step after measuring is to mark where we're gonna put our pocket holes and then start putting in the pocket holes. Now I'm making marks on each board right where I want the pocket holes to be drilled. From the left, I'll mark spots at 1.5, 8 inches, and 16 inches. From the right side, I'll make another mark at 1.5 inches. I'm only going to do this on 3 of these boards. You don't want to make pocket holes on all 4 boards or you're going to have screws sticking out of one side, and you definitely don't want to make that mistake. Now we're ready to put glue on the edges of the boards and put our screws in the pocket holes. It's not a bad idea to put a clamp on while you're doing this so that your boards don't shift around. Now, just to clean it up and make all the edges smooth, I'm gonna sand the surface. All right, guys, so here's something I want you to notice. I was talking earlier about how I leave the edges a little bit long so I can trim them down. It's because they aren't always exact when you put them all together. Take a look at this. Now I'm making my marks to prep the board for the miter saw. I'll be cutting the noodle board down to 23 inches, so I'll cut 1/2 inch off each end. All right, so I want you to tell me if you noticed something. So I had to build a second noodle board. One of them is a little bit wobbly and the other one is perfectly straight. Very stable, very solid. The other one tends to wiggle around on a flat surface. And the reason why I ran into that problem was because I had boards that were curved. So when I go to the store, when I go to Lowe's, when I go to Home Depot, wherever I go to get my wood, if it's a local lumber store, I need to look for something that has very straight, you know, that looks very straight. And that doesn't matter if you're looking at it down the whole board, if you're looking at it from the ends. I mean, it needs to be a flat piece of wood, especially if you don't have a wood planer. All right, so I went ahead and cut my noodle board completely over. These are 1x4s, and this one is exactly, these are both 20 inches long. So this is 23 inches wide, and it's 20 inches deep exactly. I even did a little trimming on these just so that it was already complete, ready to go. All right, so there's a few more things that we have left to do. One, we gotta do some routing around the edges. We gotta make it nice and smooth. And two, I wanna sand it down one time before I stain it, because we gotta make sure this thing is pretty flawless before we put the stain on. So after I mark my trim boards, I'm loading up my 1/8 inch rounding bit so I can give this project a nice, clean, smooth edge. But only where it's necessary. All right, so next we're gonna need some glue, and a glue brush is what I use. This is something where you're gonna glue on these side trim pieces, and I'm gonna have to let them dry for a little bit just to give them some time to actually stick. All right, so now I'm gonna glue the bottom, and I'm gonna put them in place. Now it's time to apply the glue. You wanna be fairly generous with it and then smooth it out with a brush so that it's applied evenly over the whole surface. Then either clamp it down or put some weight on it and give it about 20 minutes to dry. Once it's all dry, round it off with the router. All right, so now we're gonna put a few final touches on the sanding of this noodle board, and then we're gonna start looking at putting on the stain. Okay, no cheating on this one. One last sand. This is your last chance to smooth this out before applying the stain. So spend a few minutes and get the last of those little spots you missed. Now it's time to measure where you're going to drill for the handles to be installed. So I ended up having to buy a few new screws. The material that I'm putting the handles on is about 1.25 inches thick. This right here is a 3/4 inch screw, and these are 2 inches. As you can see, it's a pretty big difference. I'll show you what I'm going through here. I'm going through this. That's the original screw. This is the screw I got. So you gotta watch out what comes with these handles. And instead of making 3 trips like I have, just get some extra screws and make sure they're plenty long enough to go through the material that you have. Just a little tip. So now I've marked all the places that I need to drill. This is where I'm gonna drill through, and this way we can put the handles on. I'm just gonna set it up at this point. I'm not actually gonna attach the handles because we still gotta stain this thing. But I would rather stain it with the holes already in it than to have to drill after the stain is put on. So good idea to do that first. Now I'm going to clamp this sucker down and start drilling holes for the handles. It's always a good idea to sand the spot where you drilled, just to keep things looking pretty. Alright, so far we've cut all of our pieces, we've put everything together, we put our trim pieces on, we've routed the edges, we've sanded it down, I've drilled the holes for the handles, everything looks great on it. So all we have left to do is just stain it and put the accessories on it. Next, we're gonna go to the testing the accessories just to make sure they're fitting perfectly, and then we're gonna stain it. Now I'm gonna do a test run and make sure the handles fit. As you can see, I had to do a little more drilling. So when I put the screws through, you have a screw. This is not completely flat. There's other flat screws you can use. I wanted to use a washer so this works with it better. It sticks out a little bit. That means if she wants to use this thing, it's just, let's just say a TV tray or something like that. She's got that sticking out just a hair. Well, I don't really want that, so I may countersink this screw just so that we don't have any problems. No, I'm definitely countersinking these screws. I don't want my friends scratching their furniture when they set their new noodle board down on their coffee table. It's really simple to do, too. I'm going to sink them just enough to keep the surface flat. More sanding, more sweeping, more vacuuming, and now the fun part. There's nothing more beautiful than wood stain, but the fumes can be crazy. It's a good idea to vent the room or wear a really good mask to protect your lungs. This is a little bit of a process, but a noodle board is very simple. I like to brush it down very thoroughly, and I typically let it dry for about 5 minutes. just enough time to soak into the boards, then I wipe it off with a rag, flip it over, and repeat the same process. After that's done, I let it dry overnight. Oh, I almost forgot. I wanted black screws and I couldn't find them, so I decided to paint the washers and the screw heads to go with the dark colors. The silver just doesn't look as good up against this rustic stained wood. Luckily, they only have to dry for about 15 minutes and done. After the black dries, I put all the accessories in place, and this thing is good to go. You can always add some lacquer to give it a little bit of a shine and protect the surface, but not me. I'm going old school. Hey guys, once again, this is Brian Andrew Stevens. This was my first noodle board and I think it turned out pretty good. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy the video, please like and subscribe. Also leave me comments. If you guys have advice for me, I am not against taking advice from other woodworkers. So anyway, I'd appreciate anything you guys could give me. Also, I don't have the tool arsenal that some people have. So, I mean, there's things that will come a little easier with time as I add to my tools. For now, I mean, I think this turned out pretty good. This was a pretty simple project. I had fun with it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya.